Okay, I think we're live. I'm gonna make this guy a little bit bigger because oh, did they finally fix OBS and its weird problem? Okay, so we're gonna talk about wind conditions today. Let me also post in the thing. Okay. Let's see. All right, so let's talk about wind conditions. I'm just gonna get my everything all set up here. What is a wind condition? Let's start with that. Wind condition. How is wind condition different from a goal? How is a wind condition different from a goal? Mathematically, the ideal setup is 8 wind conditions. All right, we can start from there. Yeah. What else? I don't think a wind condition is different from a goal, but I think it's worth, like, why do we have these two terms? Yeah. How many win conditions should a game have? So yeah, win conditions is a weird word because all right, so let's talk about what is a win condition first, I guess. Let's just go into this. It's pretty self-descriptive, right? It's like a win condition are the conditions that must be met for a player to win. I think a win condition is synonymous with a goal. Although I baited you, yay! That's the goal. That was my win condition. A win condition is synonymous with goal, although win conditions implies, I think, multiple, whereas goal implies one. You typically hear win condition in a context where there are more than one. Whereas when there's only one, you would say the goal. Right? Does that sound right to you? That like if a game just has one, a lot of times you would just say, oh, the goal is blank. But like, you know, in Civ, they say there's all these win conditions, you can turn them on or off. You know, a diplomatic victory or a science victory or a culture victory, that kind of thing. Victory conditions is another synonym. I do want to get around to talking about what Brett was talking about with like other, I guess we could say, like, well, the goal is to win, obviously, is not descriptive because win is defined by meeting the goal. The goal, you can't say the goal is to win. I thought that was a joke because winning is what is winning, right? Winning is defined by the goal. Or a win condition. That's what this is. The conditions that must be met for a player to win. The win condition is how you win. Okay, so now this points to this other definition of win condition I've never heard before today. So, except in like a jokey context. So like, let's see. Let's just call this like, I don't know, level 16 Kassadin is a win condition of League of Legends. Don't think it makes to have a distinction between what and what. Goal and win condition, because that I agree with. Like I say, I'm saying that these are win condition, goal, and And victory conditions are all synonymous with just the conditions under which the player wins, the definition of a win state. So yeah, let's talk about this. I have heard people use this expression, but they're joking. I'm trying to describe the level 16 casting concept and label it. I don't care what we label it. Yeah, and so I think what level 16 Cassidon is, I mean, I would just call that a strategy, personally. Sort of synonymous with your long arc. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, so long arc or just strategy. I mean, even strategy covers it. You know, I mean, I guess you could say strategy is too broad because you have like smaller arcs. They're not joking, they're describing their approach. Well, right, they're not joking, but they're like, there's a little bit of like, it's like the carrying meme and the like, they're kind of like, I always feel like there's a little bit of like prodding at the quality of League of Legends when people say that kind of stuff, because they're like, oh, you know, it's like in the beginning when someone dies and someone else is like, well, GG, you know what I mean? They're kind of like joking. Like joking is maybe not the right word, but they're sort of like poking fun at, it's hyperbole. Yeah. Control win condition. Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah, Magic has got its own little world of terminology and stuff, and so it may be that this is more popular there, and there's some more overlap between, you know, League players and Magic players, where that gets used more. Because I actually haven't heard this very much. I might have heard this once or twice. I can imagine somebody saying it, but I haven't heard it very much. But in any case, yeah. So this is a different definition of win condition. And here's the problem with this. Like, so if you're going to ask this question, how many win conditions should a game have? Well, if level 16 Cassidon is a win condition, then really you should have like an almost infinite number of win conditions. Because what these are, as someone said, is these are long arc strategies. These are like your long-term strategic objectives, right? So let's, this use of win condition is in reference to long-term strategic objectives or strategies. The formal win condition is kill all buildings, but nobody pursues that directly. Yeah, that's an interesting case. We should talk about that. Right. And same with chess. I mean, you never capture the opponent's king in chess. But I believe the official rule in chess is, now some of that, okay, so we'll talk about that a bit, because I think actually some of that is just quality of life stuff. Like you're just skipping, like the goal in StarCraft is to destroy all the opponent's buildings. It's just that at a certain point, it becomes obvious to both players that they will be able to do that, and there's no reason to sit and watch them blow up all the buildings, so they just leave. So it's just a quality of life thing, because the game is like, you know, not that cleanly designed. It's a little bit like old school, to put it very nicely. Yeah. And yeah, so let's see. Card games do have alternate win conditions, though. Like, right, and that's the other thing. Yeah, that's a really good point. Card games, that's an interesting, oh my god, that's really interesting. Okay, so card games literally will have, yeah, like, you'll just draw a card that'll say, like, you can win if you blankety blank blank blank, like some stupid thing, you know? And so literally you can draw a card that is a win condition, which somebody said in the chat. Yeah, Daniel Garcia. There's a joke MTG card. I don't know if that means it's like, how is a joke MTG card defined? Is it not, do people not play with it? But anyway, my point is that, like, and I feel like in Hearthstone too, there are cards that are like, if you blankety blank, you win the game. And so there's this blending of like systemic rules and componential rules. Something that's like a very fundamental rule to the system, which is the win condition or the goal. All of a sudden you draw a card that has like a completely different win condition. Let's see. The fact that level 16 casting is basically a win doesn't indicate bad design necessarily. No, I agree with that. I mean, there are conditions under which... So, okay, what this is talking about is reference to long-term strategic objectives or strategies. That's not a bad thing. All games have some point, or like let's say reach some point, or conditions under which victory by one side is, you know, let's just say like, you know, pseudo guaranteed or something, you know, is guaranteed. We'll put it in quotes. Not necessarily 100%, but enough so that, you know, all players can see it. Ideally, the game ends, you know, very near, or like let's say as close to this point as possible. But usually, well, I wouldn't even say usually, but you know, players also might what's it called? Like surrender, or a better word than surrender is resign, I guess. If you know, if they like sort of see that, if they see those conditions and the match hasn't ended yet. You know, so example, StarCraft, I just killed his whole army, you know, in a huge important battle. Let's say his army and his expansion or something. At that point, it might be a foregone conclusion that I could just go march into his base and blow up all of his buildings, but usually he would just quit the game there. Concede. Yeah, concede is good. Yeah, I don't like surrender because surrender feels very like specific to like war, which whenever you have opportunities to like sort of nudge strategy game thought like in a direction a little bit away from war, I think it's like it's a good thing to do just to like kind of open up the field of what would be possible. There's a few in multiplayer games, Jacob Online says, there are a few in multiplayer games that are more like lose conditions for a player so the other player wins. The term alternate itself. But you were talking about joking / poking fun at the game with regards to level 16 Kassadin. Yeah, I think that some of this is basically saying like LOL Kassadin so imba. I think that's like I think that's sometimes that's part of the not the joke here, but like the weird little like prodding at the game itself. But I'm also curious to hear if other people agree with that. To me, it's like when people say like, you know, like I said, GG in the first 2 minutes of the game because they died or something. In which case they're like making a joke at the expense of the game, and the joke premise is that the game has extremely high levels of like feedback loops, you know, like positive feedback loops. So when they kill you once in the beginning, that means that they're just going to win the whole game now. And I don't think that's true, but I think that's the joke that they're kind of making. I think it's mostly not about balance. It's mostly about literally trying to grok how you actually win, as opposed to the formal win condition. Right. Right. Yeah, so I mean, in game design contexts, I like to try to use as formal language as we can, usually. Because it's so hard. It's already like so hard to, even when we're using the most formal language that we all agree on, there's still going to be like so many like, you know, like this is going to be so messy. So I like to try to use the most formal definitions that we can try to use. Implicit win condition. Right. Yeah, I would recommend using long-term strategic objectives for that. Or you know what I mean? Like, strategic objectives sounds good to me. Like, or strategies. I still like strategies as for this. Um, so examples of these are, I don't know. Hmm. So according to your definitions, the alternate win conditions in card games are alternate goals then, right? Yeah, they are. Yeah, absolutely. Strategies is too vague. Well, but what else are strategies besides this? How are strategies too far from the goal? Strategies always must be with respect to the goal. So, like, for example, you can go for a rush strategy in StarCraft, or you can go for like a expansion econ strategy. Um, these are strategies for winning the game. I don't know why that's too vague. Like, because what else does strategy point at besides this one thing? Strategies. Let's put this in, because this is an example for this. Would you call an opening a strategy? I don't know. I mean, I think there's some blurriness there in terms of what's like a short arc, what's a tactic. A lot of times like an opening might be a tactic. Like tactics would be smaller, little more micro things that you would do. And I think an opening, like, yeah, an opening would probably be more of like a tactic, I guess, because it's I agree chess is tactical. But there are strategic elements in chess too, but it's largely tactical because it's an 8x8 grid and there's like not that much you can do really. But strategy could refer to both. Yeah, but yeah, I think maybe we tactics. That's true. Yeah, no, I mean, well, we can't control what everyone does no matter what. No, Brett says not everyone's going to default to calling that tactics. I agree with that, but we're trying to come up with like just some like language that's as clear as possible for all of us. For me, strategy means making a plan on the go and adapting, not having a plan since the beginning. Well, I think it's always a bit of both, right? I think in practice, in basically every game, strategy means usually having some kind of plan since the beginning, even if you don't like verbally say it to yourself. Like you have some kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like kind of do this and this and this, some kind of game plan. And then of course you have to adapt. And so you're always having to adapt that strategy. I just think that's part of what strategy is. So it's both those things. Both. That's why I would like a different word for them. There should be a term for this phenomenon that we can agree on. Well, yeah. So, okay. So I think what we're trying to ask is, what's a good term for long-term strategic objectives? And it's a subset of that too, right? Because it's the long-term strategic objectives that that will kind of like that will lead to you winning, I guess. I guess really what they are is the last. They're like the final. The means to victory. Means to victory. I kind of like that actually. That's good. Yeah. Right, because I guess like yeah, that's a good point that like strategy, you have strategy in the early game, you have strategy in the mid game, but this is like late game strategy. Or like this is like it's not necessarily like late game is maybe not the best word either because I don't like implicit win condition. That's too confusing. Like that, it's just not formal enough because, you know, it's the conditions of the game just before you win. Well, it's not the conditions, right? It's your. I guess maybe it is the conditions actually, because like level 16 Cassidon is a condition. Desired conditions. Victory coupons. I mean, so far, means to victory sounds the best to me. I love that. I think that's really good. Collect them and then turn them into win. The conditions of the game just before you win is kind of what that is. Let's write that a little bit. Let's just write that down. Slash the conditions of the game just before you win. Means to victory is the one to beat, if you ask me. Yeah, that's cool. Just before, yeah, just before is a little rough. Like, well, really, what it is, I mean, if you think about the level 16 Cassidon, so here's another thing. Here's another reason that I don't like this whole this whole way of thinking. There's like something about it that bothers me, and I think I know what it is. It's formalizing something which really ideally shouldn't even exist in a game. Like, so actually, what we're saying, okay, so if we're saying, let me just type this out in like some kind of other color or something, so that if we're saying that there are conditions, like reliable conditions, or let's say conditions that you can reliably reproduce, which are not the formal victory conditions, but which like basically mean that the game is over, then this whole thing is bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, then why, like, and I agree that like such a thing is maybe unavoidable. But like something like level 16 Cassidon, you know, I get like the answer here is like why not just end the game at that point? Why not just make level 16 Cassidon the true victory condition? Which, by the way, is what they do with checkmate in chess. You know, I mean, I think, let me see, what do they say? Let's see what it says. Official chess rules. Chess.com. You're not going to tell me the rules, are you? Objective. Goal. Ah, no. Dude, do they not tell you the fucking rules to chess on the chess website? Set up, learn to move the pieces, special rules, learn who makes the first move. Oh, how to win. Okay, here we go. There are several ways to end a game of chess: by checkmate, with a draw, by resignation, blah, 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 blah. Those aren't real. The purpose of the game, here we go. This is weird language. The purpose of the game is to checkmate the opponent's king. So, right. So that's what they've done. I mean, because I think probably at some point, I would bet you anything that in chess's history, there was a point where you had to actually capture their king. And then they were like, oh, this is dumb. Let's just make it that, like, once the king is, you know, definitely going to get captured, we just end the game there. And that, like, so that's what you should do with level 16 Cassidon, too, if this is really one of those conditions. And if it's not one of those conditions, then it's just part of the game. So let's catch up on chat. That's basically another way of saying there's a too powerful high-level heuristic. Right. That's, yes, Voltarial. I like that. That's good. I'm going to just copy-paste that. Right? Because, and that's why, that's what I meant by, like, joke. You know, it's not that, like, level 16 Cassidon is, like, literally, like, a haha joke. It's that they're kind of, like, poking fun at the like kind of the low quality of the game. That like, oh, I can just get this character and it's like, good game, the game's over now, fuck you. Game shut off. All right, let's see what Jake says. Well, with League of Legends, I think these means to victory shift a lot with patches, while the formal win condition remains steady. Right, that's true. Yeah. So, but that's good because that helps us to be distinct, to understand the distinction between these two concepts. But yeah, if we're saying that there are conditions, here's my question for chat. If we're saying that there are conditions where you can reliably produce, like level 16 Kassadin, they're not the victory conditions, but which basically mean that the game is over, then why not just end the game at that point? Like, isn't it a problem that level 16 Kassadin is kind of a win condition? I would say that, yeah, like you're always going to have that kind of stuff. Oh, no, Brett already answered this. You don't just enter the game at that point because the players and designers might be discovering means of victory as they go. Right, sure, okay. So it could be that like they release League of Legends, they find out, oh, level 16 Kassadin is basically a win. Like we have the metrics and the data. We can see like thousands and thousands of matches. And we can see that when someone gets level 16 Kassadin, from that point on, they have like a 99.9% chance of winning. And then they fix that. Like that would be the next step there because that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not to say that like any measurable statistic is something that would lead to like a 99% chance to win is necessarily worth fixing or should be fixed or is even a problem. But, something being of this like size and this ease of reproduction, like level 16 Kassadins, that's not that weird, Seems kind of weird to ask the question, how many win conditions should a game have, since it's quite common that players come up with strategies? No, Zwig, we're not talking about... This is what a win condition is. You're talking about means to victory. Can't you just make reach level 16 harder? Is it only a problem if Kassadin's win rate's too high? Isn't it only a problem if Kassadin's win rate is too high? No, I don't think so, because you don't want there to be like a lame duck situation in your game. Like, you don't want there to be a situation where players are playing and maybe some of them think that they have a chance and actually they have no chance. And I think that if we're labeling level 16 Kassadin as a means to victory, then what that means is that they are playing a game, a lame duck, right? Exactly. They're just like in this fake game. You know what I mean? And so we should, so to the extent that a game, so here's my thing that I would say. To the extent that a game has measurable, clear, reproducible means to victory, these are flaws which should be corrected. Right? Because like players are playing with a level 16 Kassadin in their game and they think that they're still playing, but they're not actually playing. The game's actually over and they're just like in this zombie state. And again, like I think what Brick Road was saying earlier was, there's always going to be some amount of that in any game, right? Like there's always going to be like the last turn or two where it's like, okay, clearly you're going to win at this point. But you want to minimize that as much as possible. Like you want that to be as close to the win condition as possible. So we'll go back to this. Ideally the game ends as close to this point as possible. You don't actually know when this is the case. Yeah, but in League of Legends, if what I think Banewolf said this, if this statement is true, then we do know when it's the case. Like, I'm saying if I'm Riot and I have access to all their data and I can see like, oh, wow, level 16 Kassadin, that is game over. Which, like, by the way, I don't think that's true. I think this is probably more of a meme than like an actual real thing in League of Legends. But if it is the case that level 16 Kassadin means game over, well, okay, Zwig, maybe level 16 I don't know. This wasn't my claim. I'm saying theoretically, were this the case, that, you know, oh, we see every time there's level 16 Kassadin, that means that, you know, there's like a 99% chance or something for that player's team to win. Isn't the win rate for a 10-1 start probably similar to level 16? Wait, I don't follow that question. In the Water 88, isn't the win rate for 10-1 start probably similar to level 16 Kassadin? I don't know what win rate for a 10-1 start is. Should that condition be an instant end to the zombie state game? I don't follow. Level 16 Kassadin is... We read that already. The Volt Aerial. The issue is sort of exacerbated in a game like League with imperfect information and 10 players. Like in a 1.1v1 perfect info game, you would just forfeit. Right, that's true. It's yeah, because there's hidden information. I mean, of course, the level of Kassadin is probably not hidden information, but yeah, you get the point. In the Water 88 is saying if you start the game and get 10 kills when the other team has 1, should the game end there? Like, so that would be a situation that would be hard to. So here's what I would say. That's a good question. Let's answer that. Question. So, I think the answer to this, so like, yeah, because this actually happens in League of Legends, right? And the way that we basically deal with this is that players basically just resign. They surrender. But if we're like thinking like, okay, well, how can we like do better in the future? How can we make better games? The answer would be, so here's some answers to this. One would be make it impossible that one team can get 10 kills before the other team gets. Just make the rules such that that can't happen. And I don't have an answer for you right now on like how to do that, but I am certain that it is possible. If you start thinking like more, you know, like you might have to get a little bit more abstract and rulesy and whatever. That's one way to approach it. You know, and do similar things with other, you know, what would we call like resources, or not resources, like, yeah, I guess resources. So for example, actually, so here's a good example. Like, you know, you can, in like StarCraft or Warcraft, you have like workers that go collect minerals and stuff. But in Warcraft 3, for example, they cap the amount of minerals that you can get per mine at 5 workers, I think it was, per mine. And so, so even if you have like one expansion, it's not like you have like 20 more workers getting minerals now. You have 5 more workers. So it's like you're putting on some kind of like limitations on things. You can make it impossible, or yeah, that's one way. The other thing is there is some related mechanism. I mean, kills are such a weird thing in League of Legends or those kinds of games, because they're just like this unbounded thing. And you can just get like, 40 and 1, you know, like you could have, you could just have like any amount of kills with the other team having like none, and the game just keeps going on unless they resign. And so, I mean, I think that to me, that smacks of like a really under-designed game. Just like very like wild and loose and under-designed. Let's catch up on chat. Okay, you're saying once level 16 Kassadin is 99%. I'm saying if a team goes 10-1 off the bat, it's 9% win. Okay, yeah, I mean, and I think this is a problem. And I would say, let's start thinking about solutions to this problem. Maybe the answer is kills just shouldn't be in the game in this way. Maybe this is a problem that's fundamental to kills. Maybe every time you kill someone, they get stronger. You know, maybe there's all kinds of solutions to this. Okay. I'm gonna skip the casted and stuff just because I don't. That wasn't my claim originally. Most levels of amateur sports have things like mercy rules. Alternatively, yeah, mercy rules. I mean, that's kind of the same thing as resigning. So like basically like we have these like folk games more or less that don't manage these things for us and that let these like lame duck scenarios happen, and we as players kind of have to step in and like fix it, you know, and resign sometimes or imply, you know, set up mercy rules. Alternatively, make the rules such that if such a thing happens, they can end the game quickly from that point. Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I said. As close as possible. Because I do think that every game has means to victory, but to the extent that, let me write this out here. Well, I wrote this already. To the extent that the game has measurable, clear, reproducible means to victory, or even like known, right? Because like it should be kind of like a mystery, like how you're going to win exactly. Yeah. Okay. A lot of these problems is that sometimes the positive feedback loop isn't strong enough. Could be. Yeah, that could be part of it. The length of the lame duck period. Right, I mean, we want to reduce that for sure. Brett says, ending the game quickly after means to victory have been achieved is nice. I think it's more important to focus on what those means of victory might be in terms of actually crafting rule sets. See, I actually don't think a designer, like, okay, so imagine this. So let me just copy paste this here. I think it's more important to focus on what those, this was Brett. Imagine if you were working at Riot and a designer's like, okay, so there's this character, his name is Cassidy I'm working on, and check this out. When he reaches level 16, it's like the game is over, basically. But you know, the game might still go on, but like he's definitely gonna win at that point. I think you would say to him like, no, don't do that. That's bad. Or you know what I mean? Like, we don't want that in the game. Maybe I'm wrong. But that would be my reaction. Is like, oh no, that sounds bad. Like the game should just end. You know what I mean? Like if like there should always be counterplay if the game's going on, right? And like there's going to be a point, some kind of tipping point in every game where, you know, one of the problems with this level 16 Cassidy thing is that it's too simple. It's too like just one character out of 5 people. It doesn't deal with any other conditions of the towers or anything like that. Like, it doesn't deal with how pushed the lanes are. It doesn't deal with like all these mechanisms in the game. It's just like, nope, none of that shit matters. All you need is like level 16 Cassidy. So part of this is the simplicity. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with measurable, clear, reproducible, known, simple, I think is another maybe way to put it. League already reduces your kill bounty if you die multiple times in a row. That's true. That's just flattening the curve a little bit though. Like it's still a positive feedback loop. It's just like slowing the rate of increase, basically. So to actually reverse it, like what I would think would be interesting to play with would be a rule that when you kill someone, they get stronger. How would you remove that lame duck period in League? Is it impossible without drastically changing the game? No, probably not. If you want to do anything to make League better, you're gonna have to drastically change it. So like the idea of improving League significantly without drastically changing it, like you're gonna have to drastically change it. I don't know why I'm like losing my voice now. A fixed length of turns is a solution in board games. No, it's not, because you know, you can effectively win. I'll just write this down real quick. I think this is kind of an easy one. A fixed length of turns is a solution. I would just say no, because you know, let's say the game ends on turn 40 or 30 or whatever it is, but you've basically locked in the win by turn 20. The only problem with the 10-to-1 thing is if it means that every lane is individually losing, in which case, yeah, the game should just be over when every player is individually just losing to their opposite on the other team. In League, you either have to put more brakes on the positive feedback loop to prevent things from getting out of hand, or accelerate them so that it snowballs even harder. Yeah, and I mean, some of the problem with like League in specific is how, if you're like watching a replay of League, like so much of the game, you know, we've talked before on this show about like, you know, quantifying that which should be qualitative, and, you know, strategy and stuff should be qualitative. It should be kind of hard to measure. But in League of Legends, you know, like it kind of comes down to just gold. Like who has the more gold, you know? And everything is so just like bars going up. So it's, yeah, of course, that makes this feedback loop problem worse. And it is hard to, how do you get gold? Killing minions, killing towers, killing people, killing monsters, basically. Just killing everything you see. That's how you get the gold. If killing is no longer good, then what even is the point? Well, it is good because you clear them out of the area. So Dark is just asking about my, like, why would you kill someone when that makes them stronger? The answer is they have a cooldown timer. During that time, you can destroy some towers, and towers never come back. As just a quick example off the top of my head. It's way more complicated than just get gold, of course. But what I'm saying, like, all of the things in the game, like all the rules in the game and all the mechanics and all the state stuff feeds into this number, right? And this number, like, very accurately, like, tells you how well you're doing in the game. Not 100%, like, but that's sort of one of the problems, is like how accumulative League of Legends is. Like, fundamentally, it's just about accumulating these integers. Dying is good. You can just int yourself to the towers. I mean, we can design around that, you know, make it the I don't know. There's a way you can do it. Maybe you only get that if the player kills you or something. You don't get the bonus. I'm not gonna redesign a game here. I'm just saying, like, you could definitely, you could definitely make a game work where when you kill the opponent, that makes them stronger. But sure, maybe you have to make it that towers don't cause that effect. Things like that. Yeah. What else? Killing is no longer good. Then what's even the point? That early game just becomes literally farming simulator. You're stuck with League of Legends as your framework. Is always going to be this delicate balancing thing, right? Either nothing matters or snowball so hard the game drags on. Yeah, yeah. And so we don't have to talk about League of Legends. So originally, what I want to talk about was number of victory conditions. Now that we've like formalized what that means, we've already answered that. Proxy singed. Yeah, I'm talking about like it wouldn't be like you can just slap this into League of Legends. I think if you're trying to punch holes in like my proposed dramatically different rule set, like you will be able to do that for sure. Because I don't have a whole design doc, nor have I spent the years it would take to test and you know, iterate on it to make it work. But trust me, rules that aren't League of Legends rules can work. The answer is 3. All right, yeah, let's move on to this then. How many win conditions should a game have? So now, by the way, just to remind you, we're talking about literal win conditions, like formal win conditions, the checkmate, not the point at which victory is locked in, which would be, we were calling it the means to victory, but in fact the actual thing that triggers the win. You know, it's also sort of interesting to think about is like, actually, here's a good thing to think about, and that's valid, that's relevant to this. Yeah, let's go. What about match end conditions? So victory conditions are the conditions under which you win, but match end conditions are the conditions that cause the match to end, right? So in StarCraft, match end. The match ends when you've destroyed, or let's say one player destroys, let's say one of all, all of one player's buildings have been destroyed. League. One team's nexus has been destroyed. Of course, another informal match end condition is somebody leaves the game, whether they resign or because they have a heart attack or because their mom tells them it's time to go to bed or whatever it is. Like, you know, you could sort of say, but I think formally those are not match end conditions because they're not really designed. I guess in the case of like resigning, you would actually put that into the application itself, but it's like, it's sort of distinct from the rule set itself, you know? Let's put that aside for now because it's kind of like a little bit tricky. What other games are there, and what are their match end conditions? Let's see. Race for the Galaxy is a game I like. This has actually several match end conditions, which are, let's see, all VPs depleted. 12, is it 12 cards? 12, you know, like buildings, developments. I think it's 12, but it might be like 9. I don't know. On a player's tableau. And there's one more. What is the third? Is it you draw the whole deck? That can't be right. Now, what I would say is that match end conditions, I think that match end conditions can have any number and it's fine, but they're distinct from victory conditions, right? Because like victory, your opponent is that player, right? Your opponent. So when the match ends, let's take resigning out of it for now to be as like formal as possible. So a match ends. So the match end is triggered because there isn't actually technically victory. So let's talk about what is a match end condition. We haven't written that yet. A match end condition is a condition, is a you know, a game state that triggers the match to end. At that point, victory conditions are checked for to determine the winner. And so like kind of what we're saying here with this stuff is that you want the match end conditions and the victory conditions to like have a be as close together as possible, really. And it's usually impossible to get it, or I think it's probably always impossible to get it exactly one-to-one. Like there's almost always going to be a little bit at least of like lame duck towards the end, but that's like the design challenge, is like trying to minimize that, or that's one of the design challenges. Do people agree with this about match end conditions? So something that triggers the match to end, and then at that point the victory conditions are checked for to determine the winner. So victory is your opponent is that player. League, your opponent's team's nexus was destroyed. Not yours. Well, we don't have to say not yours. So this actually Oro is an interesting example here. Match end condition. Yeah, because in Oro, the match end condition, there's two of them. Oro runs out of health. Or the score goal is met or exceeded. And then the victory condition is, interestingly, in Oro, one of the match end conditions is the victory condition. Is the score goal is met, exceeded. So what that means is that you can die. This is an or relationship, right? So if either of these is the case, I'm sorry. Yeah, either of these triggers the match end, but then if this is the case, you win. So you can die, run out of health. That triggers the match end. Then it makes the check, and you see if the score was met. I think kills being a thing is bad is just a weird take when the actual problem causing frustration is one player having much more gold and experience than you is the actual problem here. Yeah, I think that maybe there's a conversation there about, yo, no more birds. Here, you can read this while I respond to some chats. Yeah, Dark, I think you're bringing up a conversation about like kills in League of Legends and whether that's good. And I know I made some claims about that I'm not really gonna. I think it's like sort of a different conversation. If kills are bad, it leads to some situation where a player just decides to do some PvE tasks and start ignoring the enemy team. Yeah. There's like, there's just that line of thinking just like leads to a complete redesign of League of Legends, which I think is what you're saying, but I also think is what needs to happen. But that's a little bit neither here nor there for this conversation. Let's put a pin in that and remember that, and we can maybe have a bigger conversation about specifically games like League of Legends and games like it where you can sort of like freely kill and just get like 20 kills or whatever, and how the sort of bad relationship that has with strategy games actually. It's kind of like a contest value actually, I think, the killing contest. But I'm not prepared to talk about that too much right now. Okay. Jake says, I don't see the point in distinguishing between them. Match end is just the condition for victory or loss, depending on perspective. Well, but look at this, though. Wait, over this, I mean. I'm just saying, formally speaking, there is a StarCraft game end condition, but I guess you're saying, yeah, that's the victory condition. Well, the point in why do we want to make this distinction? And the reason is that you want those two things to have a really tight relationship. You want your match end condition and your win condition to be like together as much as possible. That's kind of like the thesis statement here that I have. Not for a one-on-one game. Well, I use StarCraft as that's usually played one-on-one. All of the players' buildings have been destroyed is the match end condition. That formally ends the match. And the victory condition is your opponent's that player. Now, what happens in StarCraft is no one ever gets to the match end condition. People just resign. Resigning is like basically like, it's, I think probably like 100% of games end in resigning in StarCraft, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Like, I never thought about that really until just now, but like in all these RTS games, nobody ever lets the match end state happen. Not resigning is like bad manners, exactly. And that's weird. That's weird that the game is like so reliant on resigning. StarCraft has no comeback mechanics. Okay, yeah. I mean, there may be specific issues with StarCraft. Let's talk about other one-on-one games. I mean, I play Race of the Galaxy one-on-one all the time. Can anyone remember the third match end trigger in Race of the Galaxy? I know in Puerto Rico it's ran out of workers, filled up your island, or ran out of victory points. Those are the three. Maybe there aren't three in Race of the Galaxy. Maybe there are only two. I feel like there's a third one. There are only two in Race of the Galaxy. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I probably thought of that because of I played a lot more Puerto Rico actually. VP and 12 cards in Tableau. Okay, cool. So these are the match end conditions. These trigger the match to end. And then the victory condition is your VPs is greater than their VPs. At that moment, right? Because this is also, Jake, why the what's it called? The match end condition is important, because, that's when this is checked. That's when you make this check. And that's when players are playing around. Like, they're sort of trying to be like, go for like a early game, or like a early win, or I don't know how you would say it exactly. Hungry Hungry Hippos, end condition, all balls gone. Victory, have more balls. But in reality, in one-on-one, victory equals end condition equals have more than 1/2 balls. Perhaps. I don't know how to interpret that one. But yeah, I think Race of the Galaxy is actually maybe one of the better examples here of games. So anyways, I still haven't gotten to this thing, which I do want to talk about. But yeah, the reason to care about match end is because then we can start looking at like this lame duck stuff and finding these situations where, like maybe level 16 casting should be a match end condition. I don't really think it should be, but assuming that it was really like a thing that would trigger, like basically result in a lame duck scenario, then, maybe something like that should be a match end condition. How many win conditions should a game have? My opinion equals 1 win condition. No more birds, as always. Nailed it. No more birds, you're correct. The answer is 1. Yeah, win conditions, specifically. Now, I think a lot of this write it out. Strategy games should have 1 win condition. Again, we're using the formal definition there. I think they can have many match end conditions, though. Let's see. How many match end conditions should there be? That's trickier. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many end conditions a game should have. Like, I think on a practical level, I feel like there probably should be like 3 or less. I feel like it's very hard to keep more than like 3 in mind. Like, just from my experience in playing games, like if a game has more than 3 match end conditions, it's like should be sort of an unknowable amount of match end conditions. Hopefully, why? Unless I'm misunderstanding. Match end condition is the game state that triggers the match to end. So, for example, in StarCraft, the match ends. We're not talking about resigning. We're taking resigning out of it when all of one player's buildings have been destroyed. In League, when a Nexus is destroyed, the game shuts down. It plays that victory or defeat banner, right? The match is over. So that's a match end condition. Now, how many of those kinds of conditions a game should have, I'm not sure. Are you saying 1 win condition per match end condition? No. No, I'm not saying 1. I'm saying 1 win condition total. Just write that. What's the difference between a match end and a win condition then? Well, a match end condition triggers the match to end. A win condition triggers you to win. So for the Race for the Galaxy, I think you've played that. The match ends when all the victory points are depleted, or when 12 buildings or developments are on any player's tableau. Both of those trigger the match to end, and then you compare the victory points to see who wins. I really like Artifact's 2 win conditions of having destroyed the enemy nexus or having destroyed 2 enemy towers. Yeah. You know, in the context of Artifact, I kind of like that too. I agree with you about that. And that's something interesting to think about and talk about. Like, so yeah, let's talk about that. Let's Artifact. Let's also talk about Dragon Bridge, because there's some interesting stuff there. Artifact's win condition is kind of just that's kind of where I was going. If you just kill 1 tower in 1 lane, a stronger tower shows up. Exactly. And it's just kind of like going further. So and here's where we kind of like, I think we have to kind of get a little bit more granular actually with what a win condition really is. Or like once we start getting more like rulesy and formal with this kind of stuff, like, you know, let's see. I'm going to catch up on chat here. But yeah, I generally agree with what No More Birds is saying. If you just kill a tower in 1 lane, a stronger tower shows up. And you're still just like, it's really just like kill 2 towers. Yeah. That's kind of appropriate. 2 win conditions are fine when both players are interacting on both axes. It's bad when it's just 2 separate races. Right. Well, that's maybe a different problem where like, I agree that's bad, but I don't know that, I mean, I think that's a fundamental problem with 2 win conditions, 2 real win conditions. Let's talk about this idea of like fake multiple win conditions. They're really just 1 win condition. Now, Artifact, I don't know that well. I haven't played it that much in a very long time. So I'd like to kind of start by talking about Dragon Bridge. I think people here know the rules to Dragon Bridge. And by the way, we're getting really close. If people have supported the Kickstarter and have that coming, you should be getting your Dragon Bridge in the next, like, I think week or so. Pretty exciting. Okay, so Dragon Bridge has, in the rule book, it says you win, there's 2 ways to win. Bump the opponent, you know, like, well, okay, let's get really specific with it. Play a move card on an escape tile, or play a bump card when the opponent is on a dragon tile, or I think, do we call it a threatened tile? And so basically, like thematically speaking, what this is, like, you can escape off the edge of the bridge, or you can bump the opponent into the dragon. And I've been sort of trying to wrap my head around this exactly. It may be that this has 2 win conditions, and let's see. I'm gonna catch up here. But this is definitely at least 2. Yeah, hold on, we'll get back to that. Sort of like the Civ sort of problem. Yeah, Civ, well, yeah, it does have interactions between the systems sometimes. But it's often, Civ is often just a race. Let's talk about that. Well, actually, Civ is the easy case. We started with the hard ones. Easy case. Civilization. Like, how many was that? 7 victory conditions or some crazy thing? Like 6 or 7 victory conditions. That are just like these arbitrary things like, you know, get enough science, domination, culture, whatever. Religious, diplomatic. There's another one too, like they have 2 domination ones. One, at least in Civ 4, I want to say. Anyways, they have all these freaking goddamn things, and it's totally a race. Like, in fact, the space thing is like literally they call it, I think, the space race in some of the Civ games. And And like, yes, you could go and, you know, use your military and like crush their stuff to stop them. Yeah, and I think that I mean, races in this sense are not really very good to have in strategy games, because what a race means is just like an uninterrupted or semi uninterrupted accumulation of something. You know, that's like how you define it as a race, is when it becomes like uninteractive. I would say, in my opinion, this is a problem. I mean, strategy game wise, because there's a lot of racing, undisturbed, or not disturbed, but like uninteractive accumulation of let's just say accumulation. That's fine. I think it's match end condition with 2 outcomes. Base races are things that can happen. 1 match end condition. I don't think the number of win conditions and races are necessarily related. Yeah, I don't think they're related either. I think you can have any number of either one. So you can have 4 match end conditions and 1 victory condition. You can have a game with 1 match end condition and 4 victory conditions, or any combination of those things. Before we get further, because I'm running a little lower on time now, I want to just say, like, relationship between match end condition and victory condition. To avoid lame ducks, these should happen at the same moment or as close to the same moment as possible. Now, board games like Euro games try to do this cheesy fucking thing where they're like, hide your victory points. And what that is trying to like engineer this in like this sort of dumb way. It doesn't work. You know, players just, they just kind of know how many victory points everyone has, and it's easy enough to count them. So, but like, I mean, sometimes it depends on the setting and the people you're playing with, but sometimes it kind of works that people are like, oh, I forgot that you got those 15 victory points. But that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to make it that the victory condition sort of happens at the point. They're trying to like hide the fact that it is a lame duck sometimes. And that is, we can do better than that. I disagree with the interactive piece of Civ. The interactions between them aren't balanced well. That's true, because there are too many. Yes, I agree. I mean, you gotta admit that like sometimes in Civ, I mean, this is one of the biggest problems with Civ, is that sometimes you get on this track towards a culture victory or towards a science victory, and you kind of just hit end turn a bunch of times. And I mean, there's many problems there, right? Like there's balance problems, there's all kinds of problems. But I do think one of the problems with it is all these different victory conditions. I also will just throw this out here without being able to necessarily justify it, but it's the more victory conditions you have, the easier it is for you to make your game work. Because it's just a real obfuscating thing. It's like it really like clouds up and noises up and messes up the game state and the meaning. It's just such an easy way to make the game state like ununderstandable, especially when you have a game that's, and like most of our games, they're very quantitative, and they're very like accumulative, and so you just like you see these numbers. I mean, in Civ, that's right, you have another one, the score victory. I forgot about that. Score victory. Yeah, so you just see these numbers, and they're just going up, and you're like, all right, well, he's got way more points than me now, so I guess it's like, it's over. Isn't that what you want? Yes, you do want the system to be like obfuscated and not like solvy. But I think that multiple victory conditions is like a cheap way to achieve that. it's a cheap way to achieve a lot of things that you would like to have in a strategy game. But I think it also has these problems of like, now you have these mechanisms that just that don't plug into other things. So for example, like military stuff in Civ has like nothing to do with culture, and culture like has nothing to do with military stuff. They're really just like, there's this big map and you can play all these different games on this map. So like, yeah, here's an illustration, and part of it is just like disconnectedness, but like, you know, let's say there's a, I don't know, like a big Minecraft map or something we can all run around in, and there's, I don't know, let's say, yeah, 7 different victory conditions. I mean, it's just, it set things up, it sets things up to be a race. It's like you're fundamentally, on a fundamental level, you're building things in such a way that there's going to be this disconnected. And what Civ tries to do is it tries to be like, oh, this military unit like gives you +1 religion when you blah blah blah. But it's like they're just these like little tiny patches on something that fundamentally is like totally on a different track. I feel multiple win conditions to me are multiple games happening in one like app, you know, like you're playing a totally different game and then I come in and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm doing this other thing. Doesn't have to be a race. That's just Civ failing to make it. Well, let's talk about other examples. I'm not going to finish this thought. No More Bird says, I always feel multiple win conditions feel like a rope that frays out into a bunch of strings, where a good single win condition feels like a bunch of strings that come together to make a rope. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, like one of the basic like sort of things in Clockwork game design is the idea that you have a core mechanism and it's supported by these supporting mechanisms, and it leads towards, and it has a very direct relationship to a goal. And so what this means is, so like, for example, let's say we had a version of Civ where there was just one victory condition, it was domination. By the way, that's what I think they should do with Civ. I think that Master Magic was like that. It was just basically a war game. You know, you just have to kill the other civilizations. I think it worked much better because so military units, those are like good, like moving military units around and like fighting, right? That's like a good core mechanism towards the goal of the domination. Let's write this out. Okay. Core mechanisms point to a goal, a specific goal. Point to, relate to a specific goal. Multiple goals, therefore, means multiple core mechanisms. Right? Because if it's a different goal, you're going to need a different tool to achieve that goal. Pax Pamir is an example of a game that has good interaction across the conditions. Yeah, and I mean, like that's I think that's the best thing that you can do. Obviously, I've played a ton of Civ, and I'm not saying like games that, you know, have more than one victory condition are all bad, or like that, you know, they're not enjoyable. But I'm just speaking from a theory perspective, from my perspective, and based on what I understand about like how core mechanisms work and how they relate to a goal. Is that you're going to be setting up, so like a military unit in Civ. Let's talk about for Civ's domination victory condition, or let's say goal. The core mechanism is attacking, I guess you could say, like. But for culture. The core mechanism is, let's just say, something else. Something else entirely. So here's what I would say. Like, you definitely can't do a Clockwork game design kind of thing if you have multiple victory conditions. Maybe you can make a cool video game, you know, like or a cool board game. But it's definitely like in terms of my understanding of how these systems. What's the hell? Why is this saying victory conditions? Oh, my bad. Civ has multiple victory conditions. They're not very, not at all. No, yeah, I agree. Also, the strategy triangle is basically this: 3 win conditions. Have a sufficiently bigger army at a period of time. Have a better econ. And survive to do this later. Well, no, but we're not using that definition of win condition, right? We're using this definition of win condition. You're now switching, I think, to means to victory. Defend, tech build, death ball, ultimate late game. Yeah, these are means to victory, I think, right? And strategy, the strategy triangle is 1 level lower than WinCon. Yeah, I agree. Like the thing you're talking about, Brett, is not like the civilization win conditions. They end up at the same place. Victory. I don't follow. So we're talking about how many win conditions should a game have, as in the Civ definition of win conditions, right? Like you can turn them on and off in the options or whatever. Distinction without a difference. So wait, now are you saying that this and this are the same thing? Because I can't turn means to victory off in the Civ options, but I can turn, you know, these off. Having different ways of achieving the same thing is different than having different things to achieve. Where was I in this? Like, I'm not sure I'm following your latest chats, Brett. You might want to just like retype it out, get a little bit longer. I need to make sure to have more water available when I do these. It's like throat gets really dry from talking so much. Where was I? Yeah, core mechanisms point to a specific goal. Multiple goals therefore mean multiple core mechanisms. Also, what happens is let's say why that's bad. Multiple core mechanisms. The reason you want one core mechanism is there's going to be a core mechanism that is dominant, and you as the designer should choose that and design around it. When you would achieve cultural victory and said gain 100 bombers, then you formalize that win through military dominance. Yes, I think you're talking about reducing Civ to having one victory condition of the domination victory condition, which is like, by the way, if I was making a Civ game, that is exactly what I would do. And yeah, then you could have things like that. Everything translates back into a military thing. So then in that case, the culture would go from, you know, the culture building mechanisms will go from being its own distinct core mechanism towards its own distinct goal to a supporting mechanism for the military core mechanism. The number of formal win conditions of red herring. Well, it's not in Civilization though. You're talking about in a game that you're proposing. Like in Civilization, you do not get extra bombers when you would achieve a cultural victory. And in fact, one of the reasons, like one of the biggest, like, you know, I don't know if anyone's played Civ multiplayer, but in Civ multiplayer, if I'm going military and I see that you're going like science or culture, you know, the way, or diplomatic, I'm just gonna be like, I'll just kill you. It's kind of maybe a side point, but His point is having multiple win conditions is a cheap or easy way to create a strategy triangle. The play patterns, the dance, the flow. Yeah, it's similar to a strategy triangle, I guess, but it's more like a race. It's more like we're playing these different games and we're just racing and who can win in their game. It's more like multiplayer solitaire, actually. I guess it doesn't have to be a race. I haven't played that PAX game. They're tightly interconnected. I guess I'd have to see. I don't know if you know any examples. How does the concept of a race map onto single-player games? Can you elaborate that question? No More Birds? It's more like strategy triangle. Well, we need to come up with another example because we all agree that Civ is poorly designed, and that's sort of making it hard for us to talk about it. So we need a game that's well designed, that has more victory conditions. I have to think about that for a minute. If you have multiple win conditions in a single player game, does that run into race problems? I don't know that it would manifest like a race. So the issue with the race, let's talk about the problem with the race thing. The problem, well, it's the uninteractive accumulation. And that, so No More Birds, to answer your question, yes. You would. You wouldn't think of it as racing because you're the only player, but what there would be happening is a lot of uninteractive accumulation. So there's like all these other mechanisms in the game. So like I'm playing, one player Civ by myself or something. I don't know. That's a bad example. But, I just go for the science thing. And I'm just ignoring all this shit, right? And as Brett says, that's partly because this is a poorly designed game. But I also think that part of its poor design is that it has all these different victory conditions and therefore basically whole other game rule sets that lead into those victory conditions. What I'm saying is games have an actual set of means of victory, and that is more important to players than formal win conditions because that's what they actually pursue to try to win. I think more important to a player than formal win conditions. It's hard to say that it's more or less because it's, you know what I mean? It's like, is the basketball hoop more important than aiming the ball properly? You know what I mean? Like, well, aiming the ball properly is defined by the basketball hoop. So they're both like, you need them both. You can't have means of victory without win conditions. But I guess maybe like they think more along the lines of means of victory, and I agree with that because like I said, I think means of victory is kind of strategy. It's a type of subset of strategy, and so yeah, I think that's what players are thinking about. They're not thinking like, oh, capture the king, capture the king, capture the king, right? Like they're thinking like strategy. How can I set things up in such a way that I will ultimately capture the king. But they're thinking about strategy or means, and then strategy hopefully leads to a means to victory. Change StarCraft win condition to kill all units. Or add that condition so now there are two. That would be a win condition. The game doesn't change. Yeah, but I think in the case of StarCraft, isn't that like because we never ever even see from a player perspective? GG called at same moment. I think that you're absolutely right in what you're saying, but I don't know that that's proving the point that you think it's proving. That's just adding a redundant win condition, basically. Yeah, because I mean the problem is with StarCraft, like StarCraft already is all screwed up because like no one reaches the match end point. Like the actual game win trigger, no one ever reaches it. It's like such the level of lame duckness that's in StarCraft is so deep and like insanely huge that it's like it actually feels like it's part of the game. It's not as important as the means to victory in StarCraft. Yeah, I agree. But that's because StarCraft is like I say, like it's like lame ducked to the max. Let's talk about other examples. And if you changed their win condition. So yeah, if you change the win condition of Race for the Galaxy, do you think players would, or if you added another one, that would absolutely, like you know, proposed second win condition. I don't know, like have more buildings in your tableau or less buildings in your tableau or something. You know what I mean? It could be anything. I mean, the thing that you the reason that it doesn't matter in StarCraft when you switch that, I agree with you, it doesn't matter. But that's because it basically is the same. It's like very similar anyway, because you know, if you can destroy all their units, you can destroy all their buildings. The units are the only thing stopping you from destroying the buildings in the first place. So it is literally like a very much like a foregone conclusion there. Secondly, no one ever even gets to the part where they destroy all the buildings anyway, because it's so lame duck built in. But if you look at a game like Race, what you're saying does not apply to a game like Race for the Galaxy. If you propose other win conditions, it absolutely does matter. You know? It like completely changes how people would play the game. Wait, actually, this one that I wrote doesn't technically make sense. I think this is not enforceable, but I think you understand what I mean. I can come up with an example if you like, but I went to get a snack and completely lost the thread here. Yeah, we've been talking about match end conditions. Brett is saying that, like, so in StarCraft, it's true that if you just add another victory condition to StarCraft, that like you win when you destroy all the opponent's units, that doesn't change anything. And I think that's because, one, no one ever even gets to the victory condition in StarCraft because it's so lame duckish. While the means to victory in Race for the Galaxy might be something like get 7 military and then spam down planets. Might be. Or get a good produce consume engine going. Right, but like, you know, that's what's cool. Like, actually, I think one of the reasons I kind of suck at Race for the Galaxy is I actually do that stupid military thing where I just like get a high number of military and then just hope I pull military cards. That's how I play, and it's you know, it's dumb. It's not good. But I think the second thing you said, get a good produce consume engine going. I mean, you're really just saying play the game well. And like, yeah, like, you know, that's how the game should be. And that's to Race for the Galaxy's credit, is the fact that it's hard for us to describe the means to victory in Race for the Galaxy, right? The VP are just the formalization of the means to victory. Victory points. I'm saying achieve a game state that leads to a win. Yeah, but of course. I think it's true that players technically do care more about the means to victory. Yeah, I granted that. But means to victory can only be defined by the win condition. Yeah, they can't exist without the win condition. But I agree. Means to victory are a type of a subset of strategy. They're the last strategy in the like line of strategies. And people think about strategies when they're playing games. They don't think about the win condition exactly, but those strategies are with respect to the win condition. What if the win condition for StarCraft wasn't destroy all their buildings, but rather have 5 expansions? I think that'd be a very different game. Yes, if you change the win condition, it makes a lot of difference. I think what Brett was trying to say is if you added a second win condition. Oh, let's think about that for a second. What if StarCraft had the same rules, destroy all their buildings, but then you added have 5 expansions? Yeah, I don't know. It changes the means to victory. I agree. I would say that makes StarCraft worse if you added a second thing like that. Yeah, the problem with the one that Brett suggested is that it's too similar to one that's already there. Uh, and in fact, it's effectively exactly the same because of the fact that players play it in this weird, fucked up way anyway. What else? If you change that win condition, it actually changes the means to victory. Yes, agreed. Which is why it's an important change. Yeah, as opposed to unimportant. That's what I'm saying. The reason that it's the same is that the means to victory haven't changed. Right. Right. They're like, yeah. So I guess what you're saying, to wrap up what you've been saying, is it is possible for a game to have multiple win conditions, but they all are basically like the same, actually the same win condition. In fact, that's kind of what I would say is the case for Dragon Bridge, right? That you warmed up. I don't know if you were going for that, but that basically, and what matters is what the means to victory are. Well, yeah. So I guess what you're saying is like completely in isolation. The completely in isolation, the rule set, like the rules don't matter, or sorry, the victory conditions like don't on their own matter at all until like you play the game and you try to pursue those victory conditions. But like certainly for game designers, I mean, we should be thinking about victory conditions because those are going to inform the strategy, is what I would say. And ideally, the whole strategy throughout the whole game, not just the means to victory. So it all matters, and sometimes the means to victory is a good way to see where certain things are crisscrossed or work weird. We should think about how the win conditions create means to victory. Yeah, and not just means to victory, but throughout the whole match, right? Like because different win conditions could change the very first opening of the game, and could make the beginning of the game horrible, could make the middle of the game horrible. Yeah, I think we're really just talking about arcs. I think so. And we're talking about different parts of the game and how, but I do think there's a tendency to think that because so many games work this way, so many of our existing games work like the victory condition just kind of doesn't exist until all of a sudden it's everything. And so what we kind of, there's like a deformed way of like, the game is like a toy and you're just like doing some stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, here comes the victory condition, and then you have this like this means to victory moment where it's like, oh shit, now like there's like strategy and all feeding into that. Whereas what ideally in the future it would be like is that like from turn one I'm thinking about the victory condition, how can I achieve that? So like I'm thinking sort of means to victory even on turn one. I'm thinking a little bit like that's why I moved my first pawn. That must have been Pony Boy. We got a video chat call from Jenny. Okay, I gotta wrap up. But let me just finish this up here. Pardon me. This was a good one though. I enjoyed this. And what I was gonna say, defending Dragon Bridge. Yes. Does Dragon Bridge have multiple victory conditions? Because I'm not sure. I think it does have 2 victory conditions actually. Got me worked up. We should podcast this. Yeah, I'm down for sure. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So okay, like does Dragon Bridge have 2 victory conditions? I'm kind of interested to think about that. Because I think like in one sense it does. Certainly in the rule book it says it does. But like I guess what Brett would say is that, yeah, but the means to victory are exactly the same. And so, okay, so actually here, let's wrap it up this way. Check this out. I think this is cool. And this is super thank you to Brett for helping with this. Means to victory. Okay, so no, right here. Yeah, how many? Okay. Revised. So I think that one win condition's good. I think that's solid. But if you have multiple, or if you have multiple win conditions, what I would say is they should all relate to the same core mechanism, or perhaps the same means of victory. That I'm less sure of. But this is like basically my position, I think, on win conditions. But yeah, let's do that podcast soon. Thanks for watching, y'all. This has been the Clockwork Game Dev Show. More cool stuff is happening. Obviously, I'm doing tons and tons of Gem Wizards. I hope you come by and check that out. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. See you next time.